Hey guys, welcome to week 14. Quarterfinals are over. Some people are happy, some people are less happy. In the championship bracket, Derek's Freeman fuck-up project knocks off Chris's two men in a defense, 128.3 to 90.1. Derek had all cylinders firing in this one, getting at least 17 points from four different players, led by 22.3 from Ezekiel Elliott, 17.4 from Devonta Freeman, 20.3 from Julian Edelman, and 19.4 from Jared Cook. You opted to bench Drew Brees in favor of Kyler Murray. Must have been worried about that San Francisco defense. That decision cost you a bonus 30 points, but you still grabbed the win easily and head on to face Pope 1.0 next week in the semifinals. Chris struggled in this one, and it cost him a shot at the semifinals. You were led by Todd Gurley's 19.3 points and Zach Pascal's 17.9 points. You might have lost the matchup, but hey, at least you won a six-pack of beer from me thanks to Pascal. The first round of playoffs is not the ideal time for your quarterback to put up his second worst game of the season, getting only 10.6 points from Russell Wilson. Getting 9.1 points from Julio Jones and 4.3 points from Alvin Kamara meant the stud duo failed you when you needed them the most. Darius Slayton put up 32.9 points on your bench, but it wouldn't have even mattered in the final result of this 38-point loss. In the second game of the Champions bracket, Drew's Run CMC defeats his nemesis Josh's Please Not Last Again, 88.7 to 63.7. Drew is led by Christian McCaffrey's 19 points, and you got a solid team effort to back him up, getting 5 other players who put up double digits. Still, with no monster games and a 5 spot of 10-plus point games, you still only scored 88 points, which was by far your lowest total in a win this season. The low you'd previously scored in a win was 112.
Yeah, well, timing is everything.
You'll move on next week to play Nick in the second semifinal. Josh, you won't be coming in last again, but you also won't be coming in first. You got the better end of the quarterback swap between these two teams, getting 28.1 points from Deshaun Watson, but not a whole lot much else from the rest of the team. Chris Carson gave you 10.6 and Jarvis Landry 9.6. But you had 2 0-point games, getting nothing from Matt Prater, your kicker, and nothing from Alshon Jeffrey, who went down with an injury early on Monday night and is likely done for the season, much like you are. In the deuce bracket, matchup number 1, Jason's I Was Saying Boo Earns knocks off my Melvin Gordon Bombay 115 to 91.5. Jason got a trio of good games to lead his team to the win. You got 22.7 points from DeAndre Hopkins, 19.9 from Carson Wentz, and 19.3 from Allen Robinson. Just 2 weeks ago, you were worried about having a deuce bye, and now you are completely safe from the deuce contention, unlike some people.
Take me with you.
Sucks to be me. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse than my game last week, they totally got worse. I got 19.8 points from Lamar Jackson and 16.9 points from Melvin Gordon. I got into trouble down in the bottom half of my roster, opting to start Austin Hooper fresh off his return from an injury, who put up 4.2 points. I opted to start Darius Geis for him to put up 4.2 points in the first half against Green Bay, and then get hurt and now be out for the season. My running back 2 situation is so bad that his 4.2 points was still the best option on my team over Gus Edwards and Jamal Williams. And then I opted to bench Christian Kirk for Jack Doyle, playing for the possible touchdown catches of Doyle, of which he had none, and ended up only with 2 catches. Had I gotten Kirk in and pulled the trigger on Tannehill over Jackson, which I considered, I would have gotten a win.
Ay, 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 no me gusta.
With the loss, I head on down to the deuce bracket a little further, on to play Pope 2.0. And in the final deuce bracket matchup, Lee's Tanking for Goff defeats Brandon's Blown Call 96.4 to 91.5. Fresh off the high-scoring Week 13 win, Lee came back out and got himself eliminated from deuce contention. You got 22.2 points from Robert Woods, 17.5 points from Dak Prescott, and 13 points from Harrison Butker. No huge games, but enough points to get you on the win side of the ledger. Brandon got 16.1 points from Calvin Ridley, 15.2 points from Nick Chubb, 13.9 points from Patrick Mahomes, and 12 points from DJ Chark. The real matchup winner in this game was Lee's Hunter Henry versus Brandon's Darren Fells. That 9.7 point swing at the tight end position was the biggest difference in any position group in this matchup. I would say Brandon's biggest bust in this game has to be Patrick Mahomes, putting up only 13.9 points in the loss to New England. That's his lowest point total of a game that he finished in this season. He probably shouldn't have finished this game. It seems like after he banged up his hand in the first half, Andy Reid got cute in the second half, trying to make sure that he didn't hurt it any further with very tentative play calls, and as such, hurt your chances at a win. On to the semifinal preview. Here's what's coming up next week. Number 1 overall seed Pope 1.0's To Deuce or Not To Deuce comes off a very impressive bye week performance to take on Derek's Freeman Fuck-Up Project. Current Yahoo projections have Derek penciled in as the favorite, surprisingly, with 114.6 to 107.8. Pope ran his players hard on the bye week, putting up 178.5 points while missing out on the 23 points riding his bench from Raheem Mostert, while Tevin Coleman did nothing in your flex spot. You'll probably end up playing the San Francisco running back roulette again this week, so who knows which one will go off again next week. Derek holds the all-time advantage in this matchup, currently with 6 wins to Scott's 4. But Scott does have the single win in the playoffs versus Derek, so when it matters most, he's come out on top so far. Earlier this season, these two split matchups, with Pope 1.0 winning back in Week 2 by a 42-point margin, and Derek winning in Week 13 by a 5-point margin to sneak into the playoffs. Number 2 overall seed Nick's Hootie and the Tea Blowfish takes on Drew's Run CMC. Yet another game in which the underdog is currently projecting to be the favorite, with Drew projected to get the win 129.3 to 113.2. Nick got thumped the last time these two teams played back in Week 10, with Drew getting a 144.7 to 103.5 point win. In terms of the all-time standings, Nick has a narrow 5-4 lead in the wins category, but Drew has the only win in the playoffs between these two teams. The only injury concern in this matchup is the health of Drew's tight end Mark Andrews. Earlier today, he was listed as doubtful, but after reading his update from today, he apparently practiced today. He could come down to a game-time decision since the Ravens have a short week and play on Thursday night. With no backup tight end on the roster, Drew either needs him to go or he'll be forced to go digging around in the mud pit that is the tight end waiver wire. Down in the deuce bracket, number 1 deuce Pope 2.0's Pew Pews takes on my Melvin Gordon Bombay. This matchup is currently heavily projected in my favor as the favorite, 117 to 87, a 30-point margin of victory. It'll be a lot closer than that when Pope makes at least one move to get Mike Evans out of his starting lineup and onto his bench after losing the star wide receiver to an injury. He's listed as doubtful for this week already, and some reports state that he'll be out for the season. Pope 2 got the win earlier in the season during Week 9, 122.8 to 118.8, a game in which Mike Evans put up 33 points.
I think I know what you're going to say, but I don't want to jinx it.
And now it's too late.
Historically, this has been a close matchup over the years. I have a 4-3 game lead in the all-time head-to-head matchup, but you have the only win in the playoffs. And the final deuce matchup features number 2 seed Alex's Funkle Up taking on Brandon's Blown Call. Alex joins the underdogs in the top bracket as the favorite here, currently projecting out for a 100 to 84.3 point win. These two teams played back in Week 5, with Brandon coming out victorious with a 117.8 to 110.1 point win. Things look a little bit rough for Brandon. At the time of that win, his top 3 scorers on the team that week were Tyler Boyd, Marlon Mack, and Patrick Mahomes. Only Mahomes, who's now hurt, as it talked about earlier, is still on the roster, as Mack was traded to Derek midseason and Boyd was cut on November 20th before rattling off 3 straight double-digit games, now currently rostered by Nick. Alex's team looks basically the same. He'll have to decide who he wants to start at quarterback, whether it'll be Tom Brady or Jacoby Brissett. One new addition over the previous matchup is the presence of Kareem Hunt, who was still suspended back in Week 5, but is now currently at the starting running back position. Brandon's ahead 2-1 all-time in the total wins category. Chris and Josh play in the 5th place game, and Lee and Jason play in the 7th place game, but since those games really have no bearing on anything important other than draft nomination order for 2020, I'm not really going to cover them. The 4 eliminated teams have been locked from adding more players or adds or drops. That's Chris, Josh, Lee, and Jason. Next week, there'll only be 2 teams more that are locked. That'll be the 2 winners in the deuce brackets. At this point, we know who the golf pairings will be. Since Lee's too busy trying to tank for him, we can identify who that's going to be. We already know who the top 4 are, the bottom 4, and the middle 4. Top 4 next year will be Scotty B, Nick, Derek, and Drew. Looks like that'll be a tough foursome. Middle 4 will be Chris, Josh, Lee, and Jason. And the bottom 4 will be Alex, Eric, myself, and Brandon. Rough year for that group this year, as 3 of the 4 of us played together last year, and we were the middle group last year. Only new addition is Brandon, I believe. Of course, these foursomes aren't quite fully decided. They fully depend on if we have any extras coming along for draft weekend.
Hi, Trent.
This week's wager wrap-up. As mentioned earlier, Chris won a 6-pack of beer from me, wagering on his flex position. He was correct in thinking that Zach Pascal would have a better day than Benny Snell. As it turns out, I still know nothing. That's why I'm down in the deuce bracket. Nick lost the kicker fight to Scotty B. Pope 1.0 opted to run out his kicker in the matchup, getting 18 points from Young Hoo Koo, while Nick opted for free agent kicker Matt Gay, who put up a respectable 9 points himself. Randall Cobb currently has 44 catches to Jake Kumerow's 10, so that's looking good for me over Drew. Baltimore's now 11-2, 3 games up on Pittsburgh, and 5 games up on Cleveland. Cleveland is officially unable to catch Baltimore, so Scott, you officially lost that one. But if the Steelers win out and Baltimore loses out, I can still save this one from a draw. Unfortunately, the Ravens play the Jets and the Browns the next 2 weeks before finishing with the Steelers. I didn't hear a lot of feedback from anyone wanting to talk about potential deuces or champions. Probably everyone's afraid to jinx themselves. All potential championship votes are still alive, with some votes scattered between Scotty B, Nick, and Drew. As for the deuce, well, no one likes your team, Alex. Sorry. That means I assume you're going to win this week. We'll see you all next week for championship previews.